Hi guys, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Doing great. To start, I'm a big murder mystery fan, so when it comes to Agatha Christie, it's always interesting to kind of see how people really adapt her work. And so I want to know from both of you, what is the biggest challenge of working with an Agatha Christie story and making it original and fresh when so many of us have known them for so many years?
Well, I mean, I feel like you're probably asking the wrong people because we
Mm,
just show up, we just
mm,
show up and say, we're quite simple. We just show up and say what's written down and try and make
yeah,
it somewhat believable.
yeah.
But I think that part of the draw for both of us to an Agatha Christie, because she is, these stories are beloved and well known, and adaptations are aplenty. And so I guess the thing is that yes, there is a sort of very, very clever formula to Agatha Christie's mysteries that's tried and tested and works over and over and over. But I guess the question for us is to be able to be a part of something that felt, and not in a sorry, I'm really struggling to find the words, but not in a intentional way. It that there was something that felt very different about this one, and I think that it's a book that's less well known, that was written later on. There's all this talk about how she'd started studying Freud, and that kind of changed the way she wrote. The setup of the murder, and it doesn't follow a formulaic way of what has been done before. So, and it feels a real it relies heavily on characters, and the nuance of these dynamics and the complication of the dynamics that exists amongst all of these people in the piece. So I guess in answer to your question, the thing that was exciting right from the get-go is that they'd already kind of made these decisions and had created this world and this story, and the setup of how that was going to kind of play out felt from its inception very different to your regular kind of murder mystery. Of course, all of those elements, and it pays homage to her writing and all of that, but without sort of it being like, we're gonna like jazz up or reboot Agatha Christie. It's very much from her work. It's from the book, and this feels like a very, very different
Mm,
um yeah,
yeah.
a different, it just feels very, very different to sort of
Mm,
the adaptations that we've seen before.
mm.
Yeah.
And it feels like as well, I think when you come to any project, like you're looking for it to be a really good story. So it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to like over associate like the fact that it's a lineage or a tradition, because it kind of takes you out of I don't know, like it's just not very helpful, because there's a way of it, but it's also like regardless of anything, it's this story that I think compelled like both of us, and like it felt like it was very just much about relationships, and the direction that Sam went with it, and that the whole team went with it, like felt like that was the priority of what they wanted to investigate. And like
Mm.
I guess all got to do with power and desire, which was really interesting. And but yeah, I think sometimes when you're like too aware that something's a part of like a tradition, it can just become too much pressure, and it has
Mm.
to kind of feel simple. Do you know what I mean? Like it can, like the production and the direction and writing and stuff, like can look at all of those facets that are kind of much more like like encompassing what the intention of the piece is. But as actors, I think we kind of have to be a bit simple. Like we're
Yeah.
kind of like kids. Like we have to just be like, okay, what's my intention? What am I doing? What am I curious about? And that's the draw. If something is exciting or isn't something that you've seen or explored yourself before, that's what makes it
Mm.
exciting to work on. And that was the case with this.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask you guys because I like asking actors actory questions because I went to theater school. But
Ah,
with something like this, it's always interesting to me when you get to see, the costumes in the final product and you see how they look on you guys. But for you as actors, how much does something like the period costumes change how you're approaching a character? Because, there are changes to how we move in clothes like that, but how does something like that help with a project like Towards Zero?
Yeah, it's so helpful. It's like it informs the way you move, and like the structure of the costume is so specific. Um, like with Audrey, like there was lots of kind of linear, like restrictive clothes patterns, but also like how it felt to move in them. So it really informs how you move. And it's just so much easier to play the character when all those components come together, because it's much harder in our like modern, like relaxed way of moving and being to kind of embody that language, which is so of a time. So that's what's so magic when everyone and how collaborative it is when all those elements come together. But the costumes were incredible.
Yeah, the costumes and the sets, all of that stuff really inform so much, and the hairstyles and all of that stuff. It really kind of has this very powerful way of sort of transporting, and also just to be reminded that when people went to stay at someone's house, they changed into dinner attire. You know what I mean? There was like no like sitting in your underwear, like watching some shit on telly, like on the couch. You know what I mean? It was like such a form, and there are these sort of traditions that are now deemed old-fashioned, but that are quite interesting to think about. And I think we were asked earlier about being sort of thrown into the 30s, and you forget about what was going on in the world, and people's places in society, and all of that stuff. And it's so interesting to kind of be reminded of that, and as an actor, being immersed into that period and time, and is just it sort of ends up opening up a different part of your imagination, really.
Well, I can't wait. I'm seeing it again tomorrow in New York at the premiere, so I'm very excited. And so thank you guys so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Well, we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.